Okay, let's talk mac and cheese. Within this video, I'm going to be going over the traditional mac and cheese, probably what you would see in cafes or restaurants, as well as a completely dairy-free or lactose-free version of mac and cheese as well, as per the discussions over allergies that we talked about before. Despite mac and cheese being a pasta dish, it has some huge roots in both British and American cuisine, to the point that there are so many different variations on mac and cheese, it would be really hard to pin one singular version of it down. Most of these variations are simply what you can add to the base of the mac and cheese dish, which would simply be the macaroni pasta and also the Mornay sauce or cheese sauce, which most people know it as, and that would basically be about it. So for the purpose of the video, I won't be adding variations to it. I will literally just be making the base Mornay sauce and the macaroni, and that will be all. However, I will obviously discuss different variations, what you can add to it, what you can change about the recipe as well, in order to allow as much adaptation to the dish as humanly possible. Now, much like adapting the base dish to personal preference, changing it over for certain dietary requirements such as lactose intolerance or entirely vegan for ethical or dietary reasons is very straightforward to do, and I'll be talking about that one as well. Now, I'm more than happy to discuss all these details as we're going, but for right now, I say we head through and get started on preparation. Starting off in the best place possible, we've got the ingredients for the base mac and cheese right here. Nothing super fancy, nothing difficult to get. Going straight into it, we have the pasta itself. Now, this is using a dried pasta, however, you are more than welcome to make your own one. I'll be doing a video on that later on. Approximately 75 to 100 grams per portion. Next up, we obviously have the butter there. That's around 70 grams of butter, which is also 70 grams of flour as well. Now, most people use a plain flour for it. A trick that I've learned is to use pasta flour. It gets a much silkier sauce, which I really love as a technique. I definitely recommend you do so. On top of that, we've got just a pint of whole milk. That's around 600 ml. That is the base of the bechamel sauce. And finally, of course, it wouldn't really be a cheese sauce without the cheese. We've got around 250 grams of grated cheddar here. You're welcome to use different cheeses if you like. This is entirely a base preference. Now, getting right into cooking, we've got 1.5 liters of salted boiling water here. Just put the pasta straight into that. Let that cook down for around 10 to 12 minutes, depending on your preference and depending on the packet instructions if it is a dried one. I'm obviously not going to be recording all 10 to 12 minutes of this, don't worry. I am just using this time in order to let you know that if you are using a fresh pasta, you would only be cooking this for a much shorter time, probably only about 2 minutes. But for this, we're using the dried, and that's just gonna cook through until al dente or your preferred texture. Now, as we fast forward around 9 minutes on here, it is important to note as well that on regular occasion you will need to stir the pasta just to make sure that none of it gets stuck to the bottom of the pot. Also, in a couple of minutes, we didn't get this one on video, but we did obviously drain the pasta into a strainer and retain some of the pasta water. This is so that you can use it later on for the sauce if it gets too thick. Now that we've got the pasta drained and sitting at the side and some of the pasta water retained as well, we're moving straight on to start on the roux. That's spelled R-O-U-X. And the roux is the base of a lot of sauces. Actually, there's entire videos and books based on the mother sauces, which explains the roux in much better detail. For right now though, we're just going to get started straight onto it. We're adding the butter to the pot to begin with to allow that to melt down, taking it on and off of the heat so that it doesn't burn or get too hot, because following the addition of the butter, once fully melted down, that is when you really start getting to the roux. Now, to simplify it the very best that I can, a roux is the mix of both butter and flour in order to make a very stodgy, for lack of a better word, substance at the base of any important sauce, which is why we're adding in the flour and giving it a good thorough mix, starting off with a wooden spoon. However, we will be going over to a whisk very shortly, and it will get very tight and very tricky to manage. This is the point. This is where a lot of people will turn around and say that they've messed up. No, you haven't. Continue going on. It is going well. So for this next step, as you'll see, I have fast forwarded this footage because it is quite long. Once you reach this kind of pasty substance at the bottom of the pot, what you want to do is you want to start adding in milk. Now, it's going to start off really tight, really tough to stir, which is where we start getting in the whisk in order to get that all broken up. But as you slowly add the milk, it will become looser, it will become a lot smoother, and I guarantee you this is where the roux starts becoming more of what's called a bechamel sauce, and this is where it starts getting really good. It is very important to note that we repeat the process of adding in milk gradually and not all at one time, as this can mess it up. Usually I do it in about maybe 4 or 5 portions, so approximately 100 ml per addition. However, that's not a specific rule. That is just the way that I like to do it. Some people do it by thirds, some people do it by quarters. Just as long as it's not all at one time is the important key here. I'd also really like to take a couple of minutes while this is all going on to highlight the fact that whilst yes, this is a very dairy heavy dish, this can also be made dairy and lactose free simply by the addition of lactose free replacements or plant-based replacements as well. In this day and age, it's become a lot easier to buy alternative products in terms of ingredients or food in general, which would be the likes of your plant-based butter. I am in no way sponsored by any of the companies I'm going to name, but the likes of the Vitalite plant-based butter brand, or any of the plant-based milks and plant-based cheeses that you get out there. There are so many different names. I only highlight Vitalite because that's the one I use. I really like it. It's got great taste to it, and it's useful not just for this dish, but in general. In terms of wheat replacement, you do get your gluten-free and wheat-free pastas as well. Once again, making your own one is the best way to go about that. However, there are absolutely gluten-free pastas that you can add to this as well. If you really like, you could use entirely allergen-free product in all of this and allow everybody to have it. I myself have not done this. However, this is definitely a thing. Now at this point in the video, as you can see, we've went from a bechamel sauce and we will be adding in the cheese. Once again, this is done gradually. We're doing this round about a handful at a time. It is portioned out much like the milk was, and this is what turns this from a bechamel sauce to a Mornay sauce. That's M-O-R-N-A-Y. This is what everybody calls a cheese sauce, and by all definitions it is cheese. However, the Mornay sauce has a lot more depth to it, it has a lot more flavour. It is at this point that I highly recommend you begin seasoning to your own taste. Some people like just very simply adding a little bit of salt and a little bit of white pepper to it. Some people like adding more to it. I know in our household, it is very common that we enjoy making this into a Cajun mac and cheese to add that little bit of heat and a wee bit of spice through it. Put simply, the heat and the spice added into the richness of the Mornay sauce itself really does take this flavour to an entirely new level. We like it that way, however, there are a lot of people that might not be into that, so as I said, to your own preference if this is for yourself, or to the preference of whoever you are making this for, whether that be your friends, your family, whoever this is for, this is the open-ended area where you can season this as you like and turn this mac and cheese into your very own dish. Now, as we're getting to the end of adding the cheese into the Mornay sauce, it will be quite thin, so feel free to reduce that down simply by increasing the heat and just letting that thicken up naturally. I really wouldn't add anything else to this in order to try making it thicker. It will happen if it's just given time to reduce. Now that we have the sauce all thickened up and at the right consistency, this is exactly where I decide to do something rather risky here and allow my wife to just go crazy with the seasonings. Again, this is where we add in the Cajun for our household with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and I believe she put in a wee touch of onion and garlic powder in there as well, just for a little bit of extra depth to the sauce. However, once again, these preferences are entirely up to yourselves. You make the sauce as flavorful as you like it to be. You guys know your taste far more than I do, so by all means go ahead with that. And then at that point, what we're doing from there is we're adding in the pasta into the sauce and finally forming the mac and cheese as it should be. And without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the entirely completed mac and cheese. God damn, this is good. Literally, with absolutely every one of these steps and guides in the video, yes, it's a fair bit more work making the bechamel from the roux, turning that into the Mornay sauce with the cheese as well. It is more work than a Kraft mac and cheese. It is more work than the pre-made box ones at Tesco or Asda, or if you're in the States, Walmart. I got some still on me here, hold on. But honestly, it is so much more worthwhile. It is absolutely guaranteed. Every effort put into it, worth every bit of it. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Love y'all.